Tina Turner had a rule she followed before every concert. The same ritual, the same order, the same final 15 minutes before walking on stage. Since the first night of the Private Dancer Tour in 1984, not a single crew member had broken it. Not a stage manager, not a sound engineer, not a producer with a last-minute emergency. The rule was simple. After the final sound check, after the costume was on and the hair was set and the last conversation had been had, Tina Turner went to her dressing room alone. The door closed. Nobody knocked. Nobody entered. 15 minutes. For 3 years, and across more than 200 shows, that rule had held. On a Thursday evening in Rotterdam in October 1987, a crew member knocked on that door. And nothing that happened in that arena that night went according to plan. To understand why that knock mattered, you have to understand what those 15 minutes meant to Tina Turner in 1987. She was 47 years old. The Break Every Rule World Tour, named for the album that had extended the improbable commercial resurrection that Private Dancer had begun, was in its 7th month. She had performed in stadiums and arenas across Europe, North America, and Australia. She had sold out venues with capacities of 15, 18, 20,000 people, night after night, in cities that still seemed slightly surprised to find her there. The world, by 1987, had largely accepted what Tina Turner had become. The numbers had made denial difficult. But what the world could not see, what the numbers and the sold-out venues and the television appearances could not fully communicate, was what it cost. Not financially, not professionally. The cost of being, every single night, the person onto whom thousands of strangers projected everything they needed from music, their joy and their grief, their nostalgia and their hope. The memories attached to her voice that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with them. The 15 minutes in the dressing room were not vanity. They were not superstition. They were the space in which Tina Turner put down whatever she had been carrying as a human being during the day and picked up what the night required of her. The transition from the private to the public, from the woman to the performer. The crew understood this without being told. The rule had never needed to be explained. It simply was. Until the night in Rotterdam, when a 26-year-old crew member named Daniel stood outside that dressing room door for 2 full minutes before he raised his hand to knock. He had been with the tour for 4 months. He was young enough to still be slightly afraid of everything, and experienced enough to know that what he was about to do was the kind of thing that ended careers. He knocked anyway. There was a silence from inside the room. Then Tina Turner's voice, measured, careful, carrying within it the particular quiet of someone whose concentration has been disturbed, said, "Yes." Daniel opened the door. He stood in the doorway. He said he was sorry. He said he knew the rule. He said there was a boy in the front row, seat A3, center section, and he thought she should know about him before she went on. Tina Turner looked at him. She did not speak. Daniel told her what he knew. The boy's name was Noah. He was 9 years old. He was sitting in the front row with his father, James, a quiet man in his late 30s who had worked extra hours for 7 months to afford 2 tickets in that section. Noah's mother had died in July, 12 weeks before the Rotterdam show. A sudden illness that had given the family very little time and no warning. James had told the venue when he bought the tickets, Not because he expected anything, not because he wanted special treatment, but because he needed someone to know why this night mattered. His wife, Noah's mother, had loved Tina Turner with the specific devotion of someone who had grown up with her music and never stopped. She had told Noah more than once that when he was old enough, she would take him to a concert. She had not been given the time. James had brought Noah anyway, because she had promised, and because keeping a promise on behalf of someone who can no longer keep it themselves is one of the ways the living carry the dead. Daniel had found out from a venue coordinator. He had spent 20 minutes deciding whether to knock on that door. Then he had knocked. Tina Turner stood up. She walked past Daniel, out of the dressing room and down the corridor toward the stage. Not to the stage, to the wing, the narrow gap in the curtain where, if you stood at the correct angle, you could see the front rows without being seen from the house. She stood there for a moment. The arena was loud. 14,000 people creating the particular roar of an audience that knows something is about to begin. In seat A3, a 9-year-old boy sat with his hands in his lap, completely still. While everyone around him moved and pointed and spoke to their neighbors, Noah sat with his hands in his lap and looked at the empty stage. He was not excited in the way 9-year-olds are excited at concerts. He was something quieter than that, something that Tina Turner, standing in the wing with the curtain between her and 14,000 people, recognized without needing it explained. She stood there for a long moment. Then she went back down the corridor. She found her musical director. And she told him to change the opening song. The set list for the Break Every Rule tour had been fixed for 7 months. The opening number had been the same in every city, in every arena, on every continent. The band knew it, the crew knew it. The lighting team had built the entire opening sequence around it. Changing it 40 minutes before showtime was not a small request. Her musical director looked at her for a moment. Then he said, "What do you want to open with?" She told him the song. He nodded and went to tell the band. When Tina Turner walked on stage that night in Rotterdam, the arena responded the way arenas always responded to her, with the particular noise of 14,000 people releasing something they had been holding. She walked to center stage. She took the microphone. And then, before the band had played a note, before the lights had shifted, she walked to the front edge of the stage. She looked down at seat A3. Noah looked up. He was 9 years old, and he had his hands in his lap, and he had been sitting still in the way of a child who has recently learned that the world contains things that stillness cannot fix. Tina Turner looked at him for a moment. She did not say anything. She did not point or gesture or single him out in any way the rest of the arena could read. She simply looked at him. And then the music started. Not the scheduled opening song, the song his mother had loved. James felt it before he understood it. The first bars of the music reaching him before his mind had caught up to what he was hearing. He pressed his hand to his mouth. Beside him, Noah turned to look at his father, then turned back to the stage. And for the first time since July, for the first time in 12 weeks, the stillness in him shifted into something else, something that was not grief and not joy, but lived quietly in the space between them. Nobody on the crew that night ever fully explained how the word spread. But by the second song, the stage manager knew. By the third, the lighting director knew. By the time the show reached its midpoint, there was not a person working that arena who did not know about the boy in seat A3, and why Tina Turner had changed the opening song. The show ran for 2.5 hours. At no point did Tina Turner acknowledge Noah from the stage. At no point did she draw the arena's attention to the front row. What she had done quietly, in the way that the most significant things are usually done, without announcement, without credit. In the narrow gap between a curtain and 14,000 people, where a woman stood for a long moment, looked at a 9-year-old boy with his hands in his lap, and understood, without being told, without needing it explained, exactly what that night was asking of her. After the show, James sat with Noah in their seats while the arena emptied around them. Daniel came down the aisle and crouched beside their row. He handed James a small folded piece of paper. James opened it. Inside, in handwriting he did not recognize, were 4 words. She would have loved this. James held the paper for a long time. Noah leaned against his father's arm. The arena crew worked around them in the quiet. No one ever confirmed who had written it. No one needed to. The Break Every Rule tour continued for another 4 months after Rotterdam. The set list returned to its original order the following evening. The ritual resumed. 15 minutes, door closed, nobody knocks. Daniel finished the tour without incident. He spent 20 years working in live production afterward. He told the story of that Thursday night in Rotterdam rarely, and only to people he trusted, because he understood that some things lose something essential when they are told too widely. But he always told it the same way. He said he had been 26 years old and afraid of losing his job. He said he had stood outside that door for 2 full minutes. He said the thing that finally made him knock was not courage. It was the image of a 9-year-old boy sitting completely still in the front row while 14,000 people moved around him. And the understanding that some things, some very specific, very quiet, very human things, are worth the risk. Tina Turner changed her opening song once in the entire Break Every Rule World Tour. Once. On a Thursday night in Rotterdam in October 1987. Nobody in the arena knew why. 14,000 people heard a different song than they had expected and responded the way audiences respond to music that lands correctly, with something that felt like recognition, though they could not have said of what. In seat A3, a 9-year-old boy listened to his mother's favorite song, performed by the woman his mother had always intended to bring him to see. And the stillness in him, the particular heavy stillness of a child carrying something no child should have to carry, shifted just slightly, just enough. Some things cannot be planned. Some things can only be seen. In the gap between a curtain and a crowd, in the particular way a child holds their hands in their lap, in the moment before a show begins, when the only question that matters is what the night is asking of you. Tina Turner had a rule she followed before every concert. On one night in 1987, someone knocked on the door, and she answered in the only way she could. If this story moved you, subscribe to this channel. Every week we uncover the human moments behind the music that history almost forgot. The songs changed without explanation. The quiet gestures nobody photographed. The things done for one person in a crowd of 14,000. Leave a comment below. Was there ever a moment when someone saw what you were carrying without being told and did something about it? Share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. We will see you in the next story.